You are listening to the Cattle Call Podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The Cattle Call Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cattle Call Podcast with Jim and Rocco from Zentech Consultants. I am your host, Jim, the charming, witty, and handsome one, and with me, as always, is...
It's Rocco. I'm the better-looking one.
No, you're not.
Hands
He
down.
keeps trying. Look, put your hands down all you want. It doesn't going to matter. You should surrender because I'm the good-looking one, and I'm the funny. I'm just at everything.
Maybe we should run a survey of some sort of podcast survey.
Listen, I told you from the beginning I have a face made for radio. That's that's exactly what I got here. So, all right. Oh, goodness. See, so this is how we end our weeks, just torturing each other. That's always fun, though. That's why we make good partners. All right, so what are we talking about today? Oh, I know what we're talking about today. We're talking about our concept today is free and accessible BIM for field workers. That's our topic, presented by Rocco, who thought of this. So just over the past week, I did a series of classes for the GBCA, that's the General Building Contractors of America, as part of their Construction Technology Week Symposium. And you know, it was nice because this is the second year that Zentech was invited to host all of their online courses as part of their Technology Week, virtual summit, which is really flattering. I appreciate that they keep asking us back. And one of the courses that I was teaching
I mean, can you imagine how many hours of gym they had to listen to?
Oh,
God bless them.
God, those are some tough people who had to listen to me talk for hours on end. Yeah, I always feel bad for my students. I don't like to listen to me talk for hours on end. And yet people keep coming to listen to the podcast. Rocco, don't discourage them.
That's true.
There you go. So, one of the courses that I was teaching kind of caught Rocco's attention for once. He actually listened to my class, and he thought it would make a good topic for the podcast as well this week. So, what we're talking about today, like I said, is easy access to BIM data for the field. All right? And the key, I guess, to this topic is that all the items that I was teaching about had to meet three basic criteria. Right? They had to be usable in the field, right? Either on a tablet or a 2-in-1 system. They had to be geared toward construction use instead of the design world. And they had to be cost effective, right? That's what I was focused on. So now, the good news here is that I took that last requirement a step further, right? And I made sure that all the software that I talked about in this class was actually free. Yep. So today we're gonna talk about 4 different tools that construction folks can use to access BIM data in the field at completely no cost. All right, and heck, man, no cost. Even I can afford those packages, with the salary that Rocco gives me. So all right, Rocco, before we talk about the software set, let's talk about the interest here. How much demand do you see for construction-based BIM access in the field with our client base?
I think it's really starting to pick up, but I think there's a lot of hesitancy to move in the use in that direction, because I think everybody just thinks of BIM and they think of Autodesk and they think expensive stuff.
They do. That's absolutely true.
So they don't, and they don't know that there are free tools out there that even Autodesk puts out, and so that's why we're here. That's why we're talking about this.
Perfect. So, and actually, right, to kind of follow up on what Rocco was saying, right, the funny thing here is that all the software that I want to talk about today is all from Autodesk. And that's not, kissing Autodesk butt. We're not Autodesk resellers. We don't work with them in any way. It just happened to work out that way. Look, folks, at the end of the day, Autodesk is Autodesk for a reason, right? Despite their questionable subscription pricing and support options that annoy the hell out of most of the world, they always stay at the top of the CAD and design pile because, quite quite frankly, they have the best software, as frustrating as they can be to deal with sometimes as a company. And that's particularly true, I think, in the BIM world, right? Where Revit has become almost synonymous with BIM development. So with that being the case, right, the first software that I want to talk about today is Revit. Now, look, I know you're thinking that violates my rules of engagement for this podcast, right? But it really doesn't. Yes, Revit is used primarily by architects, and it's very expensive. But what I want to point out to everybody listening is that Revit is actually free to download and install for anybody listening. Yep, to get all the design tools, you need a license, but not to get all the viewing, measuring, and BIM information from an RVT, a Revit file, right? Which is what the construction people need. Right, so you can go ahead and you can download, install, and you can open Revit without a license. It will open in viewer mode, right, which allows you, full Revit functionality with the exception of being able to save or print or export data out of the file. Right? In other words, you can install Revit on your laptop, right? You can use it to open any, RVT file for your project, totally free, right? And you can do anything that the architect would do in Revit. It's fully functional. You just can't save it. And for construction people, that's perfect, right? We're not looking to modify the BIM model. We're just looking to get information out of it, right? What are we looking for, right? We want sizes, and we want the materials, and we want, the manufacturer part numbers, and the schedule information, and the elevation data, right? We want to isolate items on screen and look at connection details or look at things from different views than what were originally provided, so we know we're building things correctly. And with Revit in viewer mode, we can do exactly that with no trouble. Right? We can easily isolate, we can hide items, right? We can even hide families of items, right? And select objects one at a time or in multiple groups to display all of the BIM, right? The building information model data that's embedded in those objects. Right? We can also work with the 2D plans. We can open and review Revit schedules and have full access to the fully developed 3D BIM model, and it costs you nothing. Now, I bet nobody out there knew Revit could do that, did you? So, Rocco,
I didn't know that.
See there. So, how many construction firms, right? I know we do a lot on the design side, but how many construction firms do you know of that are actively using Revit right now? Do you think they know about viewer mode, or do they seem surprised by it whenever we point it out?
Whenever we point it out, I didn't even know about it, so I don't point it out.
What is the point of having you around, man? You know nothing. You are like Jon Snow. You know nothing.
Yeah, I didn't. What's your question now? I forgot. But
so, how many construction folks are actually using Revit that you deal with? We'll cut there since you didn't know about it. I'll cut the second half of the question for you.
I think there's more and more folks are starting to use it, but again, it gets back to that perception that it's a high cost. We can't afford BIM. We can't afford Revit. Or do we? We don't really need Revit for all of our field guys out there. There's because again, it ties back to that cost.
See, and that's why we're here today to tell you that you can have Revit with zero cost. There you go, folks, right? Just remember, you heard it here from Jim and Rocco at Tech Consultants. Always think of us when you think of all the good things in life. So, all right, the next software that I want to talk about today is another Autodesk product. It's an online system called Autodesk Viewer. Right? And this is a simple website that anybody can use completely free. Right? You can use it to host and share and review and mark up both 2D and 3D files. It works with standard drawings. It works with RVT, right? Revit files, DWF files. And all that you need to do is just sign up for a free Autodesk account. That's if you don't already have one, which most of us do. All right, and all it wants is your name and a valid email address. That's it, nothing else. Okay, and the beauty here is that you can access Autodesk Viewer using any browser on any device, even your tablet and your smartphone, right? And get instant access to all these files. The great thing here is that the viewer is going to let you view in 3D, right? You can pan and zoom and rotate and orbit around the 3D models. You can isolate and hide objects just like you would do in Revit, right? You can, click on items and retrieve the associated BIM data, right? And you can even measure items right on screen, right? The distance and the lengths and the angles and whatever you need, right? And one of the things that I really do like about this system is that it also incorporates a really nice set of communication and markup tools. What I mean by that is that you can zoom in on an area and you can add notes and markups, things like lines and shapes and sketch things and draw things and put rev bubbles, right? And you can even comment, right? Adding your notes and your concerns on any items, right, or concerns, right, on the file in question, and email those comments to other people. What's great here, it's hard to, I wish I could do this visually, right? It's a podcast, right? So I'll do my best to explain this, right? But the commenting feature inside of Autodesk Viewer, it includes an auto-generated snapshot, of the area that you're zoomed into on the drawing, right? In other words, when you zoom in, there's a little snapshot on the side that shows you where you are, so that people can see exactly what you were looking at or referring to on the screen when you made your comment, right? So when you zoom in, add a comment, it automatically includes a picture of your screen at that moment. Right? And you can even grab, freeform snapshots of those areas and, to embed them into emails or paste them into RFIs or punch reports and so on, whatever you need. It's really a nice little tool that gives you full 3D and BIM access, right? And it lists all of that embedded BIM data for any item you pick on screen, and it works within any standard browser. And yeah, it's totally free. Okay, so Rocco, how big of a thing is it for contractors to have the free access to BIM data like this on their standard devices? Do you see it as a big plus that they can use Chrome or Edge or Firefox or any other browser and get to all that BIM information?
Yeah, I think it's big, and it's becoming even more important, right? Especially with the kind of the let's say the dysfunction in communication now, right? With so many people who's out sick and who's behind on jobs, it just gives people more flexibility to be able to work with data. So I think it is big.
Yeah, with pricing becoming more and more of a setup, right? With short staffs and shortages for all of the equipment and shortages for the materials, right? Anything you can do to save time and money and get information and eliminate all of that back and forth 100 times to get an answer on a question, man, all those little things really add up fast. So
sure.
So all right, so like I said at the beginning of the show, I am a firm believer that BIM is necessary for construction people, right? It's just like Rocco was saying, it's too many of them believe it's too expensive, or it's just inaccessible from the field, right? So that they want to make it part of their regular work process. And I'm hoping that today's podcast is going to start to show you guys that that is not the case at all, right? And we should all be using BIM data no matter where we are, right? Whether you're in the office or if you're standing out on the 25th floor of the building on your construction site, right? It's important to all of us, right? So we're going to get back into more of this, but first let's take a break to hear from today's sponsor. But don't go away, folks. When we get back, I still have 2 more software systems that I want to tell you about. All right, we'll be back in just a minute with more of the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody. Today we are our own sponsor. This is Jim and Rocco with Zen Tech Consultants. And what do we want to talk to the folks about today, Rocco?
We're going to talk about how to make barbecue meatballs. How does that sound, Jim?
Sounds good to me.
All right. So we're here to talk about our Procore services. We are Procore certified consultants here. So, Jim, what kind of services do we offer?
So when it comes to your Procore software, we're here to help you guys with just about everything you need, from getting it set up, configuring it to your needs, importing your client database and your previous contracts, structuring reports, or even just helping you guys on the daily with the the workflow and the things that you have to do on a regular basis in terms of timesheets and really just about anything from, like we said, setup and configuration all the way through advanced training for all of your staff on how to use Procore in the method and the way that works best for your firm. So, Rocco, if folks need a little bit of help with Procore, how do they reach us?
Yeah, you can reach us. Hit up our website. We have a new website. It's zentechconsultants.net. That's ZENTEK consultants.net. Or give us a call, 866-824-4459. Or drop us an email, sales@zentechconsultants.net.
All right, and if you call now, Rocco will tell you how to make meatballs. All right, folks, we'll talk to you later. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Cattle Call Podcast. We're talking about accessing BIM data from the field in, construction friendly, right? And yes, even how to do it for that favorite cost we all look for, free. Rocco loves free. It's the exact amount of salary that he pays me for my work at Zentech. So it works out real well when I can get free.
Jim, I'm thinking about this, but, I don't know. I'll have to take it to the executive board. Potentially next year, we could maybe pay you 50 cents.
Wow, 50 cents? That's like, I'm making nothing, so that's like twice what I make now. See, my math isn't so good. This is why he gets away with paying me nothing. All right, folks. So I still have two more software packages I want to talk about in this half of the show. And I think they can both be really useful for you guys out in the field, right? Now, just to be clear, these next two systems don't work with Revit RVT files. But I always seem to need to point out to people that Revit and BIM are not the same things, right? Revit is a 3D modeling system that associates BIM data to those 3D objects. The BIM data is what's important for the construction world, not the Revit compatibility. All right, now, the good news here is that Revit can easily export the building info to the required formats for these next two systems, right? So often, all you have to do is pick up the phone or shoot an email to your architect, your engineer, and just say, hey, can you give it to me in this format? It takes them literally 10 seconds to just print it and say, here you go, okay, and you're all set. All right, so, Rocco, before I talk about, these softwares, how many people do you see that still, think of Revit as being BIM? Right? How many people still confuse BIM and 3D modeling as being the same thing? Is that just my belief, or do you see that a lot too?
I think it's changing, but I think what started that going is Autodesk, right? I mean, Autodesk kind of presented it as, well, their products are BIM, and they didn't really explain that to folks what the difference between Revit and a 3D modeling package is, and what building information modeling actually is. So I think once people get their hands into it with time, they understand that they're distinct, items. But I think Autodesk kind of misled people from the beginning.
I was going to say, do you think that was accidental or some damn good marketing on Autodesk's part? I'm going to go with number two. I think that was some really good marketing. Okay.
Probably true.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to give them credit. They do know how to run their business and get their profits. So, all right. So, on next on my list of free and construction friendly BIMware is Autodesk Design Review. Now, that's a tool that has been around for a lot of years, right? And its primary use to date has been as a tool for marking up and measuring distances and so on drawing and DWF files in the field. And a lot of the people who are listening have probably used it that way for a long time, but they've only ever worked with 2D files. For a long time, that's all it would work with. But the current versions of Design Review also has the capability to work with 3D and BIM data also, right? All you need is to get the designers to print out their, whether it's Revit or whatever other program they're using, print them out as DWF X. It's got the little lowercase x at the end. That's the latest and greatest DWF, your drawing web format. That's the latest version of it. All right. And when they print to those, it exports the full 3D and BIM support information automatically. It's part of the output process. All right, and that means that you can use Design Review to open 3D models and pan around and turn around the building, turn things on and off. Okay. Even look at the BIM data, right, using the DWF file, right? And the benefit to that is, DWFs are dramatically smaller than any other BIM file, right? That means they move much faster on your screen. That means they require, much less expensive tablets and systems to run them on. Right? So there's another benefit to that. Not only are you getting free software, right? It's actually, it's going to run on the lower end systems you may have already. And I think, one of the other things I like about Design Review, it has the added capacity, I guess, to create a cyclical conversation between, the design staff and the construction staff. And what I mean by that is, since it's designed primarily as a markup and commenting software, right? The comments and markups can be sent back to the designer with all of the field construction people's annotations and sketches and so on. Okay? And the real benefit to that is that, programs like Revit and other Autodesk verticals like Civil 3D and so on, they can insert those Design Review DWF files directly back inside the source drawing. They can just insert it in, right? So that the changes and the concerns that you guys are highlighting can be easily tracked, implemented, and then they can update and push it right back out to you in the field. Right? It's really a very nice system, and it's very, very easy to use. I mean, I've implemented Design Reviews in dozens of our client companies over the years. Even companies that I worked directly for back in those ancient days before Rocco and I started Zentech here. So Rocco, what's the vibe in general on markup software for the construction world? I mean, are people looking for tools to give them access to markup BIM data between the field and office?
Yeah, there's definitely a need. I mean, we do a lot with Bluebeam here at Zentech, right? So you hear more folks using Bluebeam for markup purposes, but a tool like Design Review, like you say, it's been out for a long time, and there's tons of people that are using it. I think I hear more people using it within the engineering fields than they do within the construction fields, but it's definitely a widely used tool.
Yeah. Yep, and just to let you know, like I said, it's we're not telling you which one you should and shouldn't use. We're just giving you your options here today. So, good points. All right, so the last bit of free BIM software that I want to talk about today is the Navisworks Freedom Viewer. Okay, and look, we couldn't have a construction conversation without including at least one Navis product, could we? Freedom Viewer is particularly nice in working with Navisworks files, which again are easily generated from inside of Revit. All right, and it gives you full access to all of the pre-built, Revit views and plans and models, that the architect has built into the Revit file. It gets converted into the Navisworks file, and it opens it up and lets you work with it in a very simple to use viewer and markup tool. Freedom Viewer does just about everything that all the previous three systems we've talked about do, but it has the added benefit of being able to generate to open the 3D model and do walkthroughs, like walk down halls, walk down stairs, turn around, walk back the other way, or you can fly around buildings, right? It lets you create animations and even renderings of the 3D data. Now look, I know most of us in the construction world, right? We're not really worried about generating renderings, right? But it is, I will say this, it is a nice option to have, once in a great while, right? When words just aren't getting your problem across to your architect or your client, you've explained it 6 times and they're like, what? Do a screenshot, right? Spin to that view, cut the view, do the rendering, make it work, okay? Another thing that I like about this system is it lets you access the BIM data through a hierarchy on the side panel. And what that means is that you can kind of sort or search items by floor or by materials or by locations, right, or systems, or any other method that you like instead of searching manually for items in the actual model. Right? I think it's really, really helpful to just be able to go to the side panel, click on the 3rd floor, then click on doors, right? And, in this list, and just say isolate. And then it isolates just the 3rd floor doors. So that's all I see. All right? So that now I can go in and get the information that I need on the hardware sets and the locks and whatever I'm doing there. All right? So, it gets you the info that you need, right? Rather than you having to go through and, okay, start at the model, and I'm going to have to hide the front wall. I'm going to have to hide the front storefront. I'm going to have to hide the interior walls, all right, in order to find those doors first, right? And I think it does a great job at that. And I think Freedom Viewer also, it lets you publish, shared models, so that the information you're working with here, it integrates with other Navisworks-based tools like Navisworks Manage and Navisworks Simulate, which you have to buy. Those are not free, but it will integrate with those, right? So that a lot of construction companies are already using those, right? But Freedom Viewer is perfect, all right, for the folks who need to use those Manage and Simulate files and link to them without actually needing to go in and do the editing and the setup in those systems, right? It's a great viewer to just give people access to them. So, Rocco, how many clients are working with Navisworks tools? Is it as widespread still as I think it is?
Yeah, I definitely hear a lot of folks that are using it. It just that learning curve is always a concern, right? I don't know how deep is the learning curve with these free tools. Is it, you're making it seem like it's pretty easy? It
actually is. I mean, most of the stuff is pretty intuitive, right? They have real big buttons. They only have like 5 or 6 options. It makes it real. They're really focused on making it easy to use for people who are not super technology savvy, right? Guys who don't spend their day sitting in front of a computer, they do their very best to make it usable by them. And I think that's a really, really important part of this. So, all right. So, all right, folks. So what I want you all to take away from today's podcast is that BIM isn't something that only architects use, right? Or it's not something that can only be worked with on really big, expensive projects because it costs too much and there's too much memory demand on my systems. There are a lot of ways for you guys to integrate BIM data into your daily workflows at almost no cost using the devices that you already own. All right, so there are no more excuses out here, people. All my construction friends out there, you all need to get on the BIM bandwagon, right? And that'll help keep ZenTech busy, right? Helping you guys get comfortable with the software and the processes and how it all works. And look, always remember, folks, keeping us busy is important, right? Poor Rocco starts to cry if he can't afford new sound systems for his fleet of yachts, right? And there's nothing sadder than watching a grown man cry. It's terrible. It's awful. So, all right, Rocco, anything else you want to throw in there?
I'm not going to comment.
It's better not to comment. All right, folks, we're going to call it a wrap for today, and we will catch you next time on the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody, today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of ZenTech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. ZenTech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. ZenTech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to ZenTech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from you all.